What is the deception behind estrogen? And why is it getting more and more popular that men are having problems with their S3-exual health, let's say? Does it have to do with this increase of estrogen that men have been seeing in the past few decades? And is estrogen even a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Should we avoid it at all costs? Is it the reason why men aren't manly anymore? Now, estrogen is a word that not only bodybuilders and hormonal doctors are using anymore. It's almost a household term, and it's known as the female hormone. So this means that for men who are trying to get more muscle, get better results in the gym, have better performance in their athletic life and their personal life, they should avoid estrogen at all costs, right? But what if I told you that your favorite and most manly actions were actually due to estrogen? And these include things like estrogen receptors in the hypothalamus that lead to the signaling of libido, that desire you get in the bedroom. And this also has a huge impact on the blood vessels that are running up and down your most sensitive parts. These veins are full of these estrogen receptors. And another thing your estrogen receptors are very prominent in are your Leydig cells. And these cells are not only important for production of that workhorse down there, but also the size. And I know men are obsessed with the size and making it bigger. Estrogen actually plays a very large role in how your body is looking, feeling, and acting. Not only that, but it also affects the amount of serotonin receptors in your brain, affecting your mood and your energy levels. But now we need to get into the two different types of estrogen, the good estrogen and the evil estrogen. Now, why is this evil estrogen running rampant? And this is due to a completely new toxin that our grandparents didn't really have when they were growing up. And there are numerous studies that back this up. In fact, a study from 2008 of 2,517 men showed that 93% of men had a higher than limit range of this dangerous toxin in their body. And these toxins are sneaky too. These actually get stored into your fat cells as well. So it makes those extra pounds even more difficult to shed off. Another research paper only 6 years later in 2014 showed that 98% of men had higher and dangerous levels of this toxin in their urine. And the scary part here is that this went up from 72% back in 2001 and 2002 all the way to 96% in 2009 and 2010. That's just an 8-year difference, and it already went up almost 30%. So how does such a high level of these toxins get into your body? Well, unfortunately, a lot of it has to do with things that are not in your control. I'm talking about things like the air you're breathing, what you're cooking with, the food you're consuming, what you're washing your body with. Everything you're using on a daily basis probably has one of these chemicals in it. Now, I'm not here to scare you away from using those things. I'm not saying that you have to get rid of everything, but a great option here is to be aware of what's actually causing the problem so you can mitigate these risks and nip them in the butt. And you can just nip them, just take them out, because you don't want all of these things culminating when you're not aware of them. You can do what you can control, and this will allow you to lower the risk of these dangerous chemicals. Now, I did not forget about estrogen. Estrogen still plays a crucial role, but what about these good and bad estrogens? The good estrogen is good for you. It helps provide that rush of energy. It helps provide that motivation, that desire to get things going in a romantic way. It also helps the stiffness of that desire to protrude itself as well, if you know what I'm talking about here. And that's why there's a sweet spot, because the bad ones, these are hijacking all of the good spots. They're hijacking the receptor sites of that precious estrogen that you do want in order to get those benefits. So most men nowadays are stuck with either above average estrogen levels, or their body isn't able to produce enough because all of their receptors are being hijacked by these fake, almost identical estrogens, the evil estrogens. Now, let me simplify this, right? Let's say you're having a party, you're having some friends over, and all of a sudden, all the parking spaces at your party are full. Now, your friends are going to start parking in different areas. They're going to start parking on the streets. That's going to draw a lot of attention. It's going to draw a lot of inflammation in the body, if this is the situation we're talking about. And then when you have all your friends out parked all over the place, the cars that are actually parked where they're supposed to be end up getting stuck and they can't move. They can't get cleaned out. They can't get cleared out. You can't do anything with it. Your body isn't able to use it because it's not something that is sustainable. It's not something that your body is able to recycle. And when you have this problem, then you start getting these symptoms. But it takes some time to get to that point, right? The body is very good at protecting itself. And nowadays we get so many of these foreign invaders that our body's not able to protect us like it was when we were younger, and especially our parents and grandparents, because they were limited to how much of this they were exposed to. They only got a little bit and they didn't get nearly as much as we do. We get a super dose of these toxins on a daily basis. Now, what are these invaders? You're probably wondering what they're called, where they're from, where do you get them, how do they get into your life? Well, these are endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. And you may have heard of a very common one. It's called BPA, but there are many, many names for these dangerous invaders. And they call them things like bisphenols, phthalates, and xenoestrogens, just to name a few. But I don't want to get lost in the names here. I want to focus on what we can do and how we can get rid of the risk that these are causing and why estrogen is so important and is so overlooked, because people are afraid of estrogen. Most men assume I better hop on an estrogen blocker. I better mitigate as much estrogen as possible. And I am guilty of doing this. In high school, I actually ended up buying estrogen blockers to see if they could actually help me increase my testosterone. Now, I bought some regular supplement company junk and it really didn't seem to do anything. It was just some herbs and probably wasn't what they actually said it was. And thank God it wasn't, because if I actually took estrogen blockers, if I actually took something that was going to get my estrogen level decreased, I could have severely damaged my intimate health and my desire, not to mention my overall health and well-being. And then on the other side of the spectrum, men think they can just jack up their testosterone levels because they think testosterone and estrogen just go hand in hand. If they keep on jacking up testosterone synthetically through injections, their estrogen suddenly just going to start going down and it's going to be totally good. The problem with that is that they're actually going to increase their bad estrogen levels. And this is because their body is going to have to compensate for their synthetically increased testosterone levels. And it's going to run out of estrogen to do that naturally. So what is it going to do? It's going to take in those chemical disruptors and it's going to use those to synthetically increase your estrogen levels as well. Now, this is all getting complicated and convoluted. However, the main focus here is that estrogen is actually good for you, but our estrogen is being attacked. And the estrogen that men are afraid of is not the estrogen they should be afraid of. The guys who are afraid and taking estrogen blockers are the same guys who are heating up their food in microwaves with Rubbermaid plastic containers, getting a whole boatload of all of these phthalates and xenoestrogens into their food, and they're consuming it directly into their system on a day-to-day basis. So it's just building up over time. This is where the problem lies. This is why I'm so heated about this conversation, because men are doing the wrong thing. Men need to mitigate the amount of foreign estrogen, and they need to help their bodies produce the right amount of good estrogen within their body. No more junk estrogen, no more crappy estrogen from all these plastics, from all these chemicals, from the air you're breathing every day. We're under attack here, and we need to fight back with the right mindset and the due diligence to improve our health and well-being as a man. So back to the evil estrogen. What can you do in order to fight back, to fight the system that is holding us back as men? Well, a big part of this system is called aromatase. And aromatase is something that converts androgens like testosterone into estrogen and estradiol. And this is meant to help us. This is something our body does naturally. But this is also something that is working against us. The best way to mitigate this is to cut out as much as you can. Think of all the plastics you're using in your personal products, your hair products, your skin products on a day-to-day basis. Anything you're using in your cookware, anything you're using in your cabinets that are based in plastic, your water bottles. Now, this is hard. This is not easy to do. These things are difficult to switch out because we're so used to this. And not only are we accustomed to this, but they're also cheaper. It's so much easier to use plastic. It's so much easier to just get a plastic bottle and just lug it back. But here's the challenge. Make a small shift. Change from a plastic bottle to a glass bottle to an aluminum bottle. And remember, things like cans also have BPAs in them. Cans have an actual lining of plastic inside of them. Now, this is going to be very easy to just mentally masturbate over and just get totally sidetracked here. So outside of changing your lifestyle, what you need to do is make sure you're providing your body with the proper minerals and nutrients that it needs. And this includes things like vitamin E, sea moss, shilajit, diatomaceous earth, anything that helps process all of this stuff out and clean it out of your body. Now, on top of that, you're also going to want to look into special herbs that'll help balance your estrogen levels. What you want is a healthy estrogen level. You don't want it to be too high. You don't want it to be too low. You want to have a good drive in the bedroom and in the kitchen and in the living room and in the local park, I guess, if you're feeling frisky, as long as there's no children around. But what you need to do is make sure that your body is in homeostasis. Now, what else can we do about this? The biggest thing we can do is to get our estradiol's level checked. Check your testosterone levels. Check your sex hormone binding globulin, your SHBG. Check these levels because these are a telltale sign that your body is working overtime in order to find homeostasis. So check these levels first, and then depending on your level, start cutting out foods. If your SHBG is too high, start cutting out things that are going to increase your estrogen levels. If your estrogen is too low, start consuming more plant foods that have more healthy levels of natural estrogens in them to help replenish your natural aromatase production. Don't start eating soy and tofu. Don't go crazy, but just look into herbs that help balance these hormone levels. And if your estradiol is too high, then you're going to want to take something that helps with detoxing, helps with getting all of these chemicals, these invaders out of your body. And this is something that most men are afraid of doing because they think it's girly, they think it's weird. But estrogen is actually very important for both women and men. And men need it just as much as women do because women need estrogen for their cycle. It also helps with their arousal and making sure they get excited. So if anything, you want your partner to have a healthy estrogen level. You want to be taking different plants and herbs and taking things that actually improve the quality of life. Because if you do not, then this will be the reason why they won. This will be the reason why you can't get that desire that you've been looking for. Now, I can go on and on here about these different herbs, these different fears, and everything that's wrong with estrogen these days. However, the most important thing to take from this is that you should be mindful of your estrogen. You should know that it's actually good for you, and make sure to get your estradiol levels tested. If you want more insights or to learn about things that I personally recommend or am taking, make sure to hit the subscribe button and leave a comment to let me know what you're personally taking to help with your estrogen levels.